Welcome back to Beans and Leaves. Grab your favorite beverage and get comfy as we discuss pop culture with a queer intersectional lens. We are hosts, Sid, they, them pronouns, and Chris, he, they pronouns. I don't know how to transition into it's a new year without literally saying that and sounding lame.
New year, new us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. New year, new us. New brand. How's everybody been doing? How are you doing? Are you okay? I'm not
tired.
okay. Nobody's okay.
We're all exhausted. We all have news fatigue.
Ugh, I have everything fatigue.
Yeah, I feel that.
I have doing dishes and laundry fatigue. I have cooking fatigue.
Literally just doing adult things daily.
I have existing on this
tired of
planet fatigue.
I'm sick of it.
Can we just take a pause? I just want to put my consciousness somewhere else while my body soldiers on.
I want a nap for like 2 months.
2 months? I feel like we deserve a longer hibernation at this point.
8 months?
Yeah, I could do that. I need equal time for as long as shit has been hitting the fan. I need a 1-to-1 transaction.
So longer.
Yeah. About 8.
Longer.
No, longer. You're right. That's depressing. So anyway, we're back. We're trying. It's a new year. We have goals. We'll see if we stick to them.
We'll see.
Yeah. I hope you guys like the new podcast logo. That came out really cute. I wonder who did that. It was me. I did that. But why don't you talk about the rough plans for the podcast that we have?
So these are real rough plans, but we did write it down. So it's like a fish now.
Mm-hmm. You have a planner, so it's definitely going to happen.
I have a physical paper planner. It has to happen now.
Virgo skills unlocked.
Let's
Level
go.
5.
So our rough plans are to do 1 episode a month. And we have planned out a theme for each episode already.
-1. We'll get there when we get there.
That one's way later in the year.
Yeah,
Hopefully
it's in the back end.
We'll figure it out. So yeah, we'll be a monthly pod now.
Wow.
For real this year.
Instead of 4 episodes in 2 years?
You know?
We're like a 6-month pod at this rate.
We're going to really become...
Biannual podcast.
We're upgrading.
Yeah.
We're glowing up a little.
We're ambitious. Look out.
You better watch out.
Yeah, so we have a lot of topics picked, including things that will take us not on the podcast to watch new media I plan on.
I had a lot of stuff to watch.
Yeah, it's mostly me forcing you to watch things that I deem appropriate, but I'm the person who seeks out new media faster, so
I just don't watch a lot of cartoons.
That's also true.
My
You could
fault.
make me watch some of the shit that you watch, but I would just go kicking and screaming.
I know you will not like
Yeah,
it, so
exactly.
I will not do that to you, except one thing.
Yes. But we're going to leave all of that as a surprise for y'all.
No spoilers.
No spoilers. Yeah. Yeah, but this episode that you're listening to right now is a reminder to ourselves and our listeners why stories matter in the first place. So this is what we do on this podcast. We talk about pop culture. We talk about stories in general.
Stories.
But to get back into the swing of things, we're like stories and why are they important to us? Why do we make a podcast where we talk about stories? With everything going on, I mean, stories are an escape as well as a reflection of the world that we want to see. Representation matters. And it shows that your voice and your story matter. So we're going to talk about our identities in relation to stories that we care about and how they've impacted us as queer folk.
As the queer folk.
Yeah, we do a queer folk podcast. Podcast.
Podcast.
That's the new name. So yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about today. This is, like I said, just a way to get back into the podcast flow. Nothing super analysis heavy. Just keeping it light, keeping it surface level as we get our sea legs back. I mean,
we're a little wobbly.
Yeah, especially you. I've talked on a microphone a couple times since our last episode. So I feel like
you talk on your siblings pod.
Yes, I talk
Save Station podcast. Check them out.
Yes, I've been a guest on that pod, and I also started streaming on Twitch recently. So
Ooh.
That's just 3 hours of talking. That's basically a podcast, but solo. So definitely harder in a lot of ways.
This is true.
Yeah.
If you're into Twitch, check them out.
Yeah.
At Chili Straw.
Everything's Chili Straw.
Everything.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're not going to mention up front what our identities are in general. We have a podcast episode about that. It's old, but it's
She's
mostly
a little crunchy, but it's basically the same.
It's mostly still accurate. We'll talk about some differences in our journeys.
Very subtle differences.
Yeah, as we go. But if you're interested in hearing more about us as people and who we are, I would definitely recommend just catch up on the podcast. There's not that many. It won't take you that long.
3 episodes out right now?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's not like you have a huge backlog to dig through. So
I mean, that very first one is kind of long, but
just chip away at it.
Yeah.
You don't need to listen to anything in one sitting. It's fine.
No.
Yeah. So you are going to start.
Me. So do I just like list my identities or?
No, take them one by one.
Okay. So watching media as a Black queer folk is interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna chip away at all of this, and I'll start with being Black and watching things. Personally, I don't identify with a lot of things in that way, I guess. Like as a kid, I really just identified with literally anyone brown. So
you take the scraps that you can get.
Yeah, so I was like obsessed with like Dora the Explorer and Lilo and Stitch. Still obsessed with that one.
Yeah, that one stuck. That's got an alien though, so
there's a lot going with that one.
Yeah,
Found
that's kind of
family.
like,
it's like beautiful.
That is who you are as a human.
Yeah. But like other than that, I like watching like Atla. I was like, Sokka is me. I am Sokka.
That's like that intersection of like brown and quirky, like brown and
quirky,
funny.
Mask.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot there that I didn't really realize as a kid, but now I'm like, oh well, duh.
Right. As opposed to like the more stereotypical like Black and stoic or like Black and rude.
Right.
Like those are definitely the more prevalent, I would say.
Right.
Tropes.
And in kids media, at least from my point of view, when I was a kid, there was a lot of like quirky like Black girls, I guess you could say. Like more specifically like That's So Raven. I was like, holy shit, that's me on screen. Type of like
Can you see into the future?
Right. I was like, oh my god.
Also, I need a gold star for being able to have even that much That's So Raven knowledge, because that is so outside of my wheelhouse.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. I was on key.
That was beautiful.
All right, I'm gonna walk away now.
But like, yeah, that show like touched on a lot of different topics that Disney would not touch now.
The 90s really.
The 90s and early 2000s really was like, fuck it, let's talk about all this shit.
We grew up in a nice time.
We did.
Miss her.
Yeah, so like seeing things now, I don't really identify closely to like Black men characters in media. A lot of time, like you said, they're stoic or like really mask
for mask.
Yeah, or just like really straight. It's like, no thanks. Like I don't vibe with any of that.
I mean, in the wise words of our sage of our era, Cyndi Lauper, girls just want to have fun, you know? So we have the fun girl characters.
Exactly. Exactly.
I said that with such a straight face.
I know. I was so proud. Like I was like, where's this going? But yeah, so with that, I don't know. It's mostly things in my childhood that I watched that identify with things more so than seeing things now. I don't know if it's because I'm not like seeking it as aggressively as I was as a kid, or
that is your formative, like your youth is very formative. So it makes sense why that like desire, as you've solidified your own identity, you're not so much looking for outside sources as much. I'm projecting. This is up to you.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like now I'm looking more towards queer rap, which is hard when you don't super identify with a lot of the labels like I hold. Right. I don't really hardcore identify with all of them, you know? Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Yeah. As a quick side though, like as a trans person, when you were younger and you like had your assigned identity, did that gravitate you more toward like away from mask characters? Because you were mask presenting a lot of your life, but like did that like help you have any connection to like a woman label, or how did that affect you basically?
I don't know. I think
because you were pretty butch.
I was very butch, but I think I don't know if I identified really with like, I'm woman.
I am woman.
Yeah.
Hear me roar.
Right. But I did identify with a lot of like female characters. I don't know. It's very interesting because like I didn't really identify with like the more butch female characters. I was just like,
They were
I
also
mean,
mask for mask in a way, especially in that 2000s era.
Yeah. I don't know. Mask things in general was really interesting. Still is, but yeah,
It was a different flavor.
Yeah. So I guess the closest butch-ish character I really identified with, what lightly identified because she is still a white woman, was Xena.
Okay.
Yeah.
She had a sword though. Well,
she had a sword.
It's a disc sword, right?
No, she has an actual sword too.
Okay. I know nothing about Xena, and it's hilarious every time.
You will watch it.
Anyways, it'll happen. But so we're leaning into the queer section of this, but like that didn't like maybe inform you more of whatever gender I present as. These are the traits that I kind of embody rather than like them being specifically female traits. These are like, I'm not so like serious and mask for mask. Like I'm the weird kid of the class kind of.
Yeah, I think I really just identified with literally any weird character.
Yeah.
Especially
I mean, Lilo makes
Brown.
more sense too. Yeah.
Like she was like the peak weird brown girl, and I was like, yes.
Here's this weird doll that I made, and the backstory is that aliens laid eggs in her head, and that's why she's so fucking disgusting. Like
beautiful.
The theatrics, the execution.
Incredible.
She's a cut above the rest for sure.
Yeah.
So then your queer identity, that's what we were leading into.
Yeah, my queer identity is kind of loosey goosey. Like, I do identify as bi and ace, and just like queer in general, because like that's an easy like umbrella term.
Give me all of them.
Yeah, but like I don't super identify with the labels of bi and ace. You know, okay. I'm just kind of like queer. That's it. Cool.
It's just that like that feeling, I guess.
Yeah.
The like not cis, not hetero. That's the kind of queerness that you.
Yeah.
It's not so much a specific identity within that. It's just that these are the things that I don't relate to.
Right, and because of that, it is very difficult to find queer characters that I super identify with, because a lot of the time they are super intensely into a single label.
I mean, that's because they're written by straight people.
I mean, yes, you are correct. Absolutely.
Like, if you're looking from that, like, cis hetero position into the queer community, they're like, it's like all these delineated lines, and every experience is, like, very specific and very unique, which is true, but it's also, like, there's a lot more blending than I think straight people really understand. There's a lot more nuance, and, like, the journey of growing up, AFAB and then being like, oh, I don't feel this way about boys the way that I've been told to. I must be a lesbian. Oh, no, wait, there's kind of more. And then you just kind of keep digging down the rat burrow of the queer community.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. And because of that, I, throughout my life, has like super identified with all types of queer characters. Mm-hmm. Like when I thought I was a lesbian, I really...
Throwback to the lesbian phase.
Throwback to that.
I feel like our lesbian phase would have been like, they're their own couple in the fucking void of the universe.
What
Good
a
for
wild
them.
couple. Because of that, I really identified with, like, I know you're not going to understand this, but Bet from the L Word.
Somebody listening will.
Yes, absolutely. Who is also mixed black and white, as I am. So I was like, yes, I see that. You are me. And then her character was batshit wild. And I was like, oh, no. You are not me.
Wait a second.
This is a lie.
Back up. I mean, and we didn't so much talk about it in your section about like being black, but having that like inner sectional framework of like you're black, but mixed, not black enough. And like,
it is
like how do you relate to a black character if you're like, but I also like you have a white side of your family and like that is also a part of your experience. So you're just kind of missing a lot of nuance with characters, I feel.
Yeah.
Which makes it harder.
Yeah. It is the weird, like, #mixed struggle of being like, with black and white specifically, of being like, black community, I don't feel black enough for that. White community, definitely not white enough for that.
Yeah, that's it's whole like other threshold.
Yeah. It's like that is like the base level of all of my identities of being like, I'm not really super into a single identity type of
You don't really fit in any boxes.
No,
You're just kind of in the gray
it's very
space.
interesting. That makes finding rep harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it means that journey to like self-actualization becomes a lot more stressful when you feel like you need to fit in. But then as you kind of chill out and stop giving a shit, then it's like, no, I'm just comfy in my weird bubble. Thanks. Bye.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Backtracking a tad. As I was watching the L Word, probably too young.
I mean,
there's like
you and half the queers alive today.
True. There's like 6 seasons or something, 6 or 7. The burp game. So there's like 6 or 7 seasons of the L Word. So as I was watching it, my like gender identity started to like really, I don't know, like
pivot.
Yes. Pivot.
You're making
yes.
a movement that seems
I know.
pivot.
I'm like, I don't know how to. Yeah, pivot. Yes, that is the correct word. And there was a trans character in that, but oh boy, did they butcher that entire storyline. It was so fucking bad.
The only thing I know about the storyline is we had a class where we watched like a couple episodes of this character, and I'm like, what the fuck am I even looking at?
Exactly. Even out of context, like seeing it as like, okay, what? In context doesn't make any much more sense.
Is it accurate, like without the context that I'm lacking? Like, it kind of felt like turfy. Like it's like all these like cis lesbians. You're shunned from the community.
The entire
we don't
thing
like
was
you
very
anymore.
not. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. You are absolutely correct.
Cool. So there's the context for people like me who haven't seen the show. Like that's kind of
very turfy. Very
how they fucked up specifically.
Like a lot of the characters were like, "How dare you like turn away from your womanhood and shit like that." It's like, ugh, ew, yuck. So that wasn't fun. But so that wasn't cool. However, like the new L Word, Generation Q, there are trans characters that are actually played by trans people as well.
Are they written well?
I mean, I didn't finish the season, but they were definitely written miles better.
Okay.
Yes, and one is like an Asian dude, and then a black dude. I'm like, ooh, yes, brown rep, also trans, love it. But one was also a pretty straight dude, and yeah. So I'm like, oh, well.
We got variety here.
Yeah.
A charcuterie board of trans, if you will.
Yeah, for real. So because of all of that, not really super identifying with a lot of the labels I do hold, I relate more to like real life people. Because like it's hard to catch the nuance of a person written into a character, you know, into a single storyline or whatever.
Right.
So because of that, I like more identify with like Elliot Page, who, as we all know, used to identify as a lesbian, now trans, uses he, they pronouns, and I'm like, ooh, yes. Still white, but also like Arrows from YouTube, who for a long time I watched because they were a black lesbian that I identified with, like fashion wise, wasn't super duper mask, was very open to the fluidity of everything. So I'm like, oh yes. And then also came out as trans. I'm like, oh hell yes, loving this.
Now you're really me.
This is my storyline.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was super cool. And like Tende Alaniran, who's a rapper,
musician,
hip hop, musician, uses he, they pronouns as well. And like all of these people like are real life people, really living their lives. And I'm like, I can identify with that a lot more than I can with something pre-written, I guess.
I feel like with this specific, like what you're talking about of this like journey from like away from what you think like tradition womanhood is and then into lesbianism, the lesbian like religion and practice, you know,
lesbianism, yes.
And then into like then shedding that completely and then into this trans story. I feel like that is hard to represent in a story unless you're telling that story, because it's like that's a years long process. That is like, how do you capture that in a character?
You exactly.
Yeah. So that makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
To backtrack, because it's in the notes, like you didn't talk about like Dizzy from the Get Down. I know you've talked to me about them specifically. Pose, like what are those kind of like?
Did I write that shit down?
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
God
I'm reading your
damn.
fucking notes.
Okay.
So, yeah, like how do those fit into your narrative then? If those are characters that you can identify with, like what piece kind of brings it forward for you?
Okay, well, the Get Down Netflix show, very fantastic. Got cut short,
Of course.
as they do.
All the best ones do.
Dizzy, who was played by Jaden Smith, was kind of a bi character. Like, we don't really know how he identifies. He doesn't know either, but that's the fun of it. But definitely was super into a dude. But, like, we saw that, like, I guess, like, gay panic, I guess. But not, like, really panic. Just like this is different type of vibe.
And that's a historical show, too. So
Yes, it takes place in, I think, the 70s, 80s era of hip-hop and stuff. But yeah, I think because of his super nonchalant vibe of just like, this is different, I'm gonna do this now. I really identify
just rolling
with
with
that.
the punches.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Just like not super panicking, like, oh my god, it's a man I like. What's happening?
Ah!
Just like, he's cute. All right.
Just very relaxed about it.
Right, exactly. And Pose, I just identify because that's Black queer history right there.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's like, the fashion is just like, ooh, delicious. Like, I was bound to identify in some form with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's most of what you got written down, except this other musician. Yeah.
So the Get Down and Pose, they're just two shows, right? Most trans storylines are white, and they're very, if they're trans men, very mask. So I don't like vibe with all of that.
It's like mask to pass and not like be read as trans. Like they're trying to there's a word for that, and I'm reaching a not, it's not pass, it's like, anyway, you know.
But be stealth?
There you go, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, it's they have this end goal of like, I will,
right.
my trans journey is like a chapter of my life. My goal is to like be stealth and like have it not be a conversation anymore, whereas we are people who just like yeah, we're trans and we'll forever, like, we're just so like in the middle that it's like you might as well just be loud and enjoy it. So.
Right, exactly. And because of that, just like, let's enjoy being here, vibing. I am on the Tick of Talk, and
sorry, what was that?
The Tick of Talk.
You know,
and I have found a lot of bands where they identify as queer, and a lot of them use they them pronouns or she they he they, like variations. Like a drummer from the Gully Boys, Naughty, who is also brown, and I'm like, yes, that's rep.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like what you were saying earlier, like that's another real person, not
exactly,
a character.
right.
So.
It's very difficult for me personally to find storylines I really identify with, I guess.
Yeah.
So that was my real struggle of trying to write things for this episode, this topic.
I mean, you definitely are at that disadvantage because there just aren't people telling your story. And
it's
so
a lot of identities packed into one character, which a lot of people are like,
you're so
that's unrealistic.
You're so intersectional. How dare you? You're
too intersectional for writing rooms, you know?
I know. You're just like, what is this snowflake that you brought to us? Like, there's no way a person like this exists.
That's not a thing. Hello. Here I am.
You're not anybody's target demographic. I'm sorry.
No, but there's not enough of me, I guess.
If you're not marketable, then you can just walk away from capitalism. So good for you.
Thank you.
Just go write your own fucking stories in the corner, coloring book and crayons. Bye.
I mean, that's why we started a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. This is to critique this shit.
To critique it, and also, at least for me, to in some way be my own representation.
Exactly.
You know?
I mean, then too bad you're not a character, you know?
Hi, hello.
You'd be another
the
real
character
person
that I identify with.
It's me, Beach. I mean, I drew you on a cartoon, so there you go. That's your fucking character.
Boom. There I am.
Done. You're welcome. Yeah. So, yeah, you definitely had the disadvantage.
It was a ride.
Yeah. But you found things, period.
I found things.
You didn't think that you would have any.
I didn't. But I did find things. It was just kind of hard to dig back into my brain and be like, what the fuck have I seen?
Yeah, and then at that phase in your life, like we talked about, like when you're a child, like what really stood out to you and what helped you form identity.
Right. I had to just take my life in chapters like that of like, okay, what did I like as a child? Okay, what did I vibe with as a teen? Okay, what I like in college. All right, here I am.
And that's it. That's the whole life.
Right.
We're done.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Me, on the other hand, I am a person who consumes a lot more stories in general, and I also have like a better memory and like recollection and connection to stories. So for me, it was like I have this huge pool, but then how can I dig through this pool to kind of find something that relates to my specific identity? I have the privilege of being white, so I see a lot of like people who look like me in a lot of ways on screen, not a lot of people who identify like me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I have just one piece of your struggle, but I have like a different twist on it. So that's what I'm going to talk about. So the main one that I see a lot is being non-binary. And non-binary is such like a hard thing to represent, period, because it
looks like anything.
It's a non-thing. It's the lack of a thing. Exactly. So really just we need more non-binary people to write stories and then that'll be fine, you know? So whatever. Boom. So, but the characters that I have listed here are Stevani and Shep from Steven Universe. Those are two characters who like are explicitly non-binary, use they them pronouns. Both of them are characters of color.
Hell yeah.
So I'm going to slide that under your doorstep someday. Don't worry about it. Yes, it'll happen. Don't worry about it. But like that show is filled with like queer aliens and people of all colors and shapes and sizes, and it's lovely. But those characters specifically, just from the context of how they're referred to by other characters and like the pronouns thing is really huge to me as like non-binary. Absolutely. Because my non-binary doesn't look like anything specific. So I'm not really looking for like an aesthetic match in that show specifically because it's so varied. It's more of like that language that really stuck out to me with that. Then I also have Krona from Soul Eater, which that is also a language thing. So when watching the show, when I was in my middle school-ish years, that's a character who is referred to in the show as, and I might get this mixed up, show as male and comics as female. So that was a character that's like, why in one adaptation would you make...
That's interesting. Because
the character design didn't change either way. They just look the way that they look. But apparently when they reprinted the comics recently, now it's they in the comics.
Hell yeah.
So that's like, that is a non-binary character now. Thank
Absolutely.
you very much. That's a deranged as fuck non-binary character.
That's still a non-binary character.
That's beside the point. But, and I'll get to this in a second, but like, so much non-binary representation is non-human.
Yeah, like there are a lot of like aliens and shit.
Which I mean, I vibe with, but like, can we get some? Can we get some more? So Krona
that says a lot.
Krona straddles that like is part human, part not. Stevani and Shep also in Steven Universe. Those are two characters who are at least 75% human in Stevani's case, but like Shep is human. So then to have a human character who's also brown is like, wow. Like you went the extra mile. You get bonus credit. Good job. Chaos in Hades uses they pronouns and is just referred to as like, you know, the deity of chaos, you know, no gender associated, talks about themselves in like a like third person, like the royal we kind of language, which is like a little extra, but I vibe with it. So in a game of generally a lot of queerness in that game, that one is like the one they, and I'm like, I will take thank you in my pocket. Double Trouble from She-Ra, again, a non-human alien character, but the theatrics and the shape-shifting to become like all of these different like aesthetics, I'm like, okay, that is a very, like I think I could see that as a non-binary aesthetic. Plus Double Trouble is voiced by somebody who identifies as non-binary.
Hell yeah.
So,
that's double rep right there.
This is a really weird one because I block it out from my brain every time, but one day at a time. One of the few live action shows I've actually watched. Again, Netflix canceled it because they hate fun.
Someone else picked it up though.
Yes, we'll get more eventually. But there's a character in that show named Sid who uses they them pronouns, and I'm like, we need to stop. Hold on. Is somebody gonna pay me royalties for using my likeness? It's even worse because like they are that like middle school-ish, like early high school-ish age. and they're both into Doctor Who, which I also was, and I'm like, this is getting like
This
fucking
is
full on
me.
Twilight Zone, and I need to leave. Mostly I'm just happy that Sid came out a lot earlier than I did. I'm a little jealous, but you will cringe with the Doctor Who, but I support you. I see myself in you too much to not love the hell out of you.
Absolutely.
That's one of the few white characters in that show of a mostly Latina family.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the side characters are white. I would say it's also been a minute since I've seen it. But yeah. That one's a little too close to home, so we're gonna.
That one is just past you.
I'm gonna Men in Black wipe that from my mind again as like a cringe protection shield. Another anime. This one's a little bit more femme than a lot of my other examples, but Utena from Revolutionary Girl Utena is like a classic queer anime. Came out in the 90s, which is really early for anime in queerness. Utena is a woman who is in love with another woman and defends her in sword battles, which is you're doing something
that's
right.
Peak gay right there.
But wears a male student uniform the entire show.
Yeah.
So it's very much that like her entire character arc is like, I want to be a prince to save somebody like I was saved when I was younger. So she's like, I could just be like strong, but she so closely identifies her journey with like that ideal of princeliness and like that expression. So for me, who was younger and like would pick male options in video games to like have that like story arc, that is the part that I kind of relate. Like she still keeps like her long hair and it's pink, and she still has like there's a lot of rose symbolism in the show, but like everybody gets a rose, even all the guys. So, but she's like that. I would say like that historical example of like anime queerness. And so a lot of even Steven Universe takes heavy inspiration from Utena, and you can kind of see that reflected in a lot of shows. So other shows that I've identified with kind of stem from that. So by the time I watched it, I'm like, oh, I know you. I've not seen this yet, but I still know you. And my last two are Link from Breath of the Wild, because Link is every trans person's gender. We all get a piece of Link. We all love Link. He's that, especially Breath of the Wild Link. Like, I've seen a lot of like trans mask people be like, that is like the short, but like has had like looks like he could have had like top surgery, like physique. He's got that like long ponytail, is like still femme, and that has like the earrings and things, but Link is great, especially like with the Gerudo outfit, and then which has problems, I know, but Link is a great one that throughout the years of Link, I think this is kind of like the culmination of him being a more androgynous type hero.
I wish I could identify with that little twink.
That's fair. He's twinky, he's white. I definitely get a piece of that. I can't relate to being short. Don't know that struggle, but
God, wish that were me.
Yeah, but I've heard a lot of people of different like identities. Like,
oh yeah,
really
so
grasp
many
onto Link.
Trans people across the entire spectrum of everything.
Yeah, it's
has
just then that
with
component
Link,
of like
yeah.
he's pale and white, and so a lot of people, not white. He's probably Asian. It's a Nintendo game, but you know,
he's light skinned.
Yeah. I don't know. Zelda also has like a huge Christian ideology, histories. He could just be white. I don't know.
Anywho.
Anyway, then my last example is Haruhi Fujioka from Ouran High School Host Club. So that's a character who is forced to join an all-male host club, thinking that character is male, and then it becomes this reveal of like, oh no, Haruhi's a woman. But also, again, like, where's the male school uniforms, that more mask-presenting side of me? But then there's a line specifically where it's like, when the gender is revealed, it's like, I don't really care what gender you see me as. You need to see me as who I am. So it's like, gender, don't know her. Fuck all of that. Yeah, I don't want you to judge me based off of that. I want you to judge me based on, like, who I am. So that in my tiny little adolescent brain, I'm like, ooh, why does that line hit different? What's here? What's that nugget? We're going to bury that for a little bit. So, but like I said, like a lot of my characters that I pulled out specifically, I tried to pull out a lot more human characters that I resonate with more, but there are a lot of like non-binary characters who are aliens, robots, just non-human in general, AI sometimes, which I love all those types of characters, but we definitely
Let's get
need
more
to,
than that. Let's get a variety, though.
we need to swing more, and we need to get more examples like Stevani and Shep, which have like more intersectionality to them too, and aren't just the white twink, which I can identify with, but is very limited toward the rest of the community that I'm a part of. And I would just want to share more. Like, more is better.
More is better.
Like, I've been represented in a lot of ways by being white and being more twinky, tall, all that shit. So that aspect of me is covered physically, but again, like, we already don't have a lot of queer characters because they're not marketable. So fuck marketability is really what I'm saying in the end. Yeah. And then so for queerness, I just have like all of Steven Universe. Just all of it. In our intro episode, I think I mentioned having the identities of like Demi and Pan. Yeah, that's again like you, I like to exist in gray space. Like,
it's fun.
Yeah, I don't identify strongly with Pan, but I do so more than with bi. But that's like, again, personal preference. I like the colors of the Pan flag more.
Is it the colors?
It's the colors.
That is why I chose bi, because I like those colors more.
I like yellow actually, and teal and pink. They're great.
I like pink.
It's
and
the
purple.
primaries, but with a fun twist.
With a fun twist.
Yeah, and that's my sexuality is color theory, but with a fun twist. No, but all of Steven Universe does a really good job of just representing nuance in identity and not giving specific labels. Like, they're not like Pearl is bi and Garnet is a lesbian. It's like, no, these are aliens again with no gender. They present very femme, but they, like, you see these two femme characters fall in love, or you see like a masculine character fall in love with another masculine character. And so it's less concerned about specificity, which I think is where it excels and why I relate to it
Hell yeah.
more. Also with like Achilles and Patroclus in Hades, that's like one of the main standout queer relationships in that game. It's less about the fact that it's like gay men, like that's not really a part of my identity, but in a game where it's a lot of like the other main romance story in that game is Eurydice and Orpheus, like that is like a more straight relationship. Having this like side queer relationship, that's where I'm like, okay, I see the queerness in this. I relate to this more nebulous idea of queerness. Anything but straight, essentially. I'm like, yeah, I see pieces of this. I've identified as a lesbian. I've identified pan. I'm a non-binary person dating a trans man. You know, like we got all sorts of.
Have we collected all of the LGBTs?
I think the only one that I haven't is gay, but you can kind of make an argument because non-binary could be like, I am very masked.
Everything's
we could be
gay.
Everything's gay.
Everything's gay if you're non-binary.
Yeah, exactly. We're just gonna do the bingo sheet. We'll go for blackout. Get everything. Get a sticky hand prize at the counter.
Yeah.
Yeah. One day at a time, again, with that like that youth and then like exploring lesbianism, but like having two characters who like from people who are uninitiated into LGBT would be like, those girls are lesbians. Sid is non-binary. And so having that like non-binary attraction to womanhood and being like, I don't identify this way, but I like, that is what I'm attracted to. That nuance. I'm like, I feel that I've been there before. Utena has the queerness. And then the other one I have is Moomin and Snefkin, because just the pining and then that idea of, especially with that more demisexual that I kind of lean to, it's that the romance and the attraction isn't as much of the narrative as it is like the human connection and having that more like deep connection before you kind of move into romance. That is kind of where I pulled that. So yeah, largely non-hetero, and then no specific labels really there, but that's the representation that like of the pool that I've collected over the years. Those were the standout examples.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Good stories in general, for sure.
Yeah. Watching media and seeing yourself reflected in media hits different.
Right. And like some of these examples I mentioned are newer, but quite a few of these were things that I grew up watching. Like Steven Universe is newer, but it started when I was still in high school. Yeah. So it's encapsulated like a huge part of my life and my journey. And my
Mhm.
identities have changed like 4 or 5 times in that time period. So yeah, like having something that you can connect to at different points in your life. Like I don't think I had very much queer representation, if at all, when I was younger. I think maybe one of my parents tried to get me to watch Birdcage, and I was just like,
That's a very specific
I was
gay
yeah.
identity.
Yeah. And so I didn't see a lot of that in general. I watched Rocky Horror too young. That's a fun time, but that's more, like you said, like the queer history and the queer culture rather than like specific identity.
Mhm.
So, yeah. I don't think we really have a thesis statement for this episode. We just kind of, we're gay and there's gay.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's not enough brown in the gay.
Rep is good.
Rep is good. Rep feels good. And then like it was just nice to feel comforted by thinking about good stories when I don't really want to be thinking about a lot of things that are going on right now. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Good job. Gold star.
Yay.
As a side note, for people listening to this episode, we are recording it on the 18th is today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We don't really talk about news in this podcast in general.
It's been wild though.
It's been fucking insane. We just wanted to say like the day and stuff that we've recorded this on so that if shit really breaks bad and we didn't talk about it on a day where we release this, like regardless of what's going on in the world, we really hope that everybody is safe and just around people that love you and support you and that you feel like you are in a way that you can take things bit by bit. So.
Also, we live in a city now, so I'm so sorry if you hear all these sirens.
I mean, it is what it is. Background ambiance. Cool. Our next episode will be about how we connect through sharing media we love with one another. So that's February. We got a Valentine's Day-ish. Kind of on the same theme of today's episode, but we're going to talk more about like how when Chris has shown me media, it's taught me more about who he is as a person, and it's representation, but sharing that, I guess, connection. It's kind of a weird topic to describe, but that's what we're going to talk about next month.
The media you watch, you really suck it into your personality. You don't realize it.
Yeah, and how when you are sharing a relationship is an exchange of information, and so that can help you better understand the person that you know you're connected to. So yeah, that's going to be the topic. So that will come out next month. You can follow the show at beans_podcast on Twitter and Instagram. Send your comments, questions to our email, beansandleavespod@gmail.com. And if you want to donate to the show to help us provide transcripts for our episode, we have a Patreon page and a Ko-fi. You can find the links on our website and our social media. Our theme music was created by Andrew Pena, a new upcoming composer who is always looking for new projects and collaborations. And be sure to follow him on Instagram at AndyFast1. Thank you guys so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.